House will come back to order. House will come back to order. We're going back to the rules calendar. Going back to the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 145.
Senate Bill 145 by Senator McCoon of the 29th to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 31-2-3 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the Board of Community Health so as to provide that at least one member of the board is also a member of the State Health Benefit Plan. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Peake to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the exact same bill as passed the House with 152 positive votes in HB 722. There's a small change to the low THC oil definition that was requested by GBI and the DAs. There's no change to the THC limit. There's no conditions the same as before. So I ask for your favorable consideration again. A real quick message to the Senate. There's 645 patients currently on the low THC oil registry. The commission recommended more conditions. So on behalf of Colin, a young boy with autism, Reed, a 2-year-old with EB, the rare skin disease, for veterans of war who suffer from PTSD, for Gage, a 16-year-old with Tourette syndrome, for my brother's friend who suffered from AIDS, who wanted medical cannabis as an option, for Michelle, an adult with peripheral neuropathy. Let's pass this bill in Senate for the compassion, have compassion on the citizens of this state. When we send this back over to the Senate, I'm asking my Senate colleagues, please support this bill, and asking you again to vote affirmatively for it again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield the wheel.
You had no questions. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Well, you do have a question. Do you? No. The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 145. The ayes are 157, the nays are 7. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Right, yeah, that's right. House will come to order. Members, please take your seats. Chair recognizes for a morning order the chairman of the Motor Vehicles Committee, Chairman Tom Rice. Chairman Rice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I asked the Speaker for the privilege of being down here tonight, he said, look, you've been here 20 years, you ought to take 20 minutes. But then he said, I'm going to apportion the time. You got 5 minutes tonight, you got 15 minutes tomorrow night. So, and I think everybody likes that. Everybody wants to get through and go eat. Look, you know, I've been co-chair of the Legislative Fellowship for a long time, so you can't get past this without hearing a couple biblical verses here that hopefully will inspire you a little bit. And there's one that comes to mind. It's Ecclesiastes 3:1, which says there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. So my season's lasted 20 years here. But the interesting thing is you too will have a season, right? And the fact is that I brought a pictorial demonstration of that tonight. And so I'm going to hold this up. And you know what this is. Obviously, well, no, we're a little upside down. So, you know. This is a picture of the House of Representatives in 1999. So if you look at this closely, you'll probably find 20 people left out of the 180 that were here at that point in time. So that's about 11% of the people are still around after that point in time. So the fact of the matter is, as I go, so shall you go at some point in time. And that's all in the Lord's control. When I went over to ask for a bill over in the Senate, Jeff Mullis asked me, he said, why are you retiring? And I said, well, I've been called home. And he said, well, maybe you shouldn't say that. That might have a different biblical reference than what you think it has. I'm gonna put this out in the ante room, and you go out there and you find out who you are if you're still here. You'll see Ron Stevens with black hair. You'll see me with some hair, and you'll see a lot of other people you might be familiar with in this picture. Oh, I'm sorry. Earl is in the picture also. He had black hair too, absolutely. So the truth is that you're all special people. But I was thinking about this whole thing. I thought about 180 of us in this chamber. Then I thought about, I wonder how many people are in legislatures across the country. There's 7,238 members of legislatures across the United States. And that's representing 335 million people. You know, that is an incredible opportunity that we've been given to do this work down here, and it puts it kind of in perspective for me. So, how special is the job? Well, you know, when I became chairman, not to be too puffed up about this, when they say, Mr. Chairman, I said, well, you know, I thought about that for a while, and I said, you know, I think that they only call you Mr. Chairman now because they can't remember your real name, right? Probably the truth. Look, there are a lot of special people down here, and I'm not going to do what other people have done. I'm not going to name them all. I couldn't have the power to name them all over the 20 years I've been down here. But I do want to talk about one little scenario that kind of summarizes the way I feel about the people in this place. And it's a story that has some pathos associated with it. In 2000, my wife Ann was going through a period of time where she had chronic lymphocytic leukemia. It became very active just before the session started in 2000. And we'd been married for 37 wonderful years and lived a gracious life 13 years after she'd been diagnosed with the disease. So we were well blessed. She developed a desperate need for a very rare, 10% of the population, blood type for platelet transfusion. Put out a call for that, and guess what? Some people from this body showed up. Representative Golick, I won't embarrass him too much, but Representative Golick, who's never sitting in his chair, but Representative Golick is one of the ones who came down to the hospital and gave platelets for my wife. There he is. Hi, Rich. There you go. Gave platelets for my wife. 7 other people, including a member of the Supreme Court and others from this body came down there. And that's just a sense of what we have in terms of the commonality of our interest. Sat at my desk during that same period of time. Ralph Hudgens was my seatmate then. And on one of my more anxious days, because she was in the hospital for 45 days over a 6-month period of time, which was a difficult time. And I remember him taking my hand in his and just praying with me to relieve some of the anxiety. It's one thing. Well, Ann went home to be with the Lord in 2000, in June of 2000, but the prayer partners in the Capitol didn't stop praying. And I'll tell you what happened as a result of that. As a matter of fact, Ralph and Suzanne prayed for a wife for me. And then they found one for me. And then they paid her to take me. And my wife now, Frances, of 15 years, is sitting right back in my seat back there. So, honey, love you. Now, unless you think that's just happenstance, those same people, Ralph and Suzanne Hudgens, found out that two of my children had been trying to have a baby for 11 years and couldn't have one. Suzanne said, well, I'll put you on my baby prayer list, and about a year and a half later, Suzanne happened to be part of the group at the Athens Crisis Pregnancy Center that had a baby for adoption. And guess what? That baby is Virginia Rice, and she's the redhead sitting up in the gallery up there, who's been added to our family. So we've been blessed through the associations we've had down here. But I'll tell you what, there's one secret to getting ahead down here. I think everybody probably wants to get ahead down here. There's one secret, and the secret is how God has talked about how he's going to prosper us. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. The condition was, if you pray and seek my face. So it must have been that the people sitting next to me all these years have prayed and sought his face. Not sure all of them did, but anyway, it happened anyway. So I'm going to tell you that the chair that Brett Harrell is sitting in right now, that's an anointed chair, because it's right next to the chair I've been sitting in all these lives. How can I prove that to you? I can prove that to you this way. Ralph Hudgens sat in that chair. He's now senator, was a senator, and now the insurance commissioner. Kathy Cox, the state school superintendent, sat in that chair. Chip Rogers, majority leader in the Senate, sat in that chair. Mark Butler sat in that chair, commissioner of labor. Stephen Allison, before he decided to move himself up in the world, was chief deputy whip. And now the vice chairman of the rules committee is sitting in that chair. Now, here's the key thing. I'm going to auction that chair off to somebody at the end of the evening here. You guys all have a chance at it. So my greatest joy has been really helping, it's been down here and to see some life change. And life change has occurred in that legislative fellowship, and that's probably the best moment of my life in terms of seeing it at the Lord at work down here. I remember he reached out and touched one of our legislature who didn't know him on a personal basis. His life totally changed. His worldview changed, his legislation view changed, and his family changed in terms of the difficulties he was having in his life. And believe me, that life change that I saw will far outweigh any bill that I've ever worked on or helped to pass down here. So I realize it's the privilege and the same grace that I've been able to serve in the Georgia House of Representatives that he's allowed me to see in the lives of so many people here in this building. From Pamela Lewis, who's been my able assistant aide and prayer partner down in the suite, to so many others, it's been a great time. I want to thank, you got to thank somebody here. And I'm going to thank my family up there in the gallery, the whole bunch of them that are down here, and all that I've served here with and are serving for making these years the most blessed of my life. Now, I don't say goodbye, right? I say auf Wiedersehen. You know what auf Wiedersehen means? Auf Wiedersehen means till we meet again. And so for all you out there that think you shed me, we're going to meet again someday. So thanks an awful lot for the opportunity. And Speaker, I yield back the remainder of my time for another 20 minutes if you want it back. And with that, I yield the well.
We're back on to some business now. Chair recognizes Chairman Chokus for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move we agree to the Senate substitute for House Resolution 1052.
Chairman Chokus has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1052. The clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution number 1052, honoring the life of Mr. Thomas William Poole and dedicating a bridge in his memory.
Chair recognizes Chairman Chokus to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All we're doing is bringing it back to its original form. The Senate dickered with it a little bit, and we got it back. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for everybody's favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1052, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 167, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1052. Chair recognizes Representative Chandler for a motion. Just a minute, Representative, if you'd step out. House will be at order. This House will be at order. Lady may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute of 555 as amended by the House.
Representative Chandler moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 555 as amended by this House. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill number 555 to be titled an act to amend Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to courts so as to provide for the reporting of certain statistics regarding juveniles seeking abortions without parental notice.
Chair recognizes Representative Chandler to explain her motion.
This simply takes our original bill 555 as it left this House and puts it back in that original form. And I ask for your favorable approval of this.
Do you yield for questions?
I will yield for questions.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the lady yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this not the first time that private physicians have been asked to report like this?
This bill is going back to the way it left the House and does not include that part. That was added by the Senate. We're just talking in this part. As it left the House, we'll simply talk about the reporting of juvenile court judges to the Administrative Office of the Courts and then to the Department of Public Health.
Okay. Thank you very much. I've just been informed that the amendment strikes it.
That's right.
And my concern, Representative, is that we haven't had any lately in our area, but in my district and across this country, we had people seeking out and killing physicians. And the OBGYNs, which we have so few across this state, and we have so much trouble recruiting them, we're very concerned that this might put them at risk, and it also would keep us from recruiting new OBGYNs. So I thank you and for changing it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you further yield?
I will yield to one more quick question.
Chair recognizes Representative Randall to your left for a question.
That's a gentle lady yield.
Yes, ma'am.
So is it not true that you're saying that this bill has come back without the additions that the Senate attempted to add?
The Senate added 2 parts to the bill, but we have amended it, and we're saying to the Senate we want to go back to the way it left the House.
Does the lady further yield?
Yes, ma'am, to one more.
Is it not true that when this bill left, I voted against this bill because I don't think it's necessary, and with whatever changes or not changes, I think that this is a horrible bill?
The lady knows about which she speaks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I yield the well, Mr. Speaker.
On the lady's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 555 as amended by this House, is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? It is AM 370311. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the amendment is adopted. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 555 as amended by this House. All those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the lady's motion, the ayes are 114, the nays are 55. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 555 as amended by this House. Chair recognizes Representative Broderick for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House accept the Senate substitute to HB 783 as amended by the Senate.
Representative Broderick has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 783. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 783 to be titled an act to amend Chapter 13 and Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to controlled substances so as to change certain provisions relating to Schedules 1 and 4 controlled substances, to change certain provisions relating to the definition of dangerous drug.
We will postpone for a little bit House Bill 783. Chair recognizes Representative Gravely for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House adhere and appoint a conference committee on Senate Bill 199.
Representative Gravely has moved that the House insist on its position in agreeing to the Senate position on Senate Bill 199, that we adhere and appoint a conference committee. The clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 199 to be titled an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to primaries and elections generally, so as to provide a definition that prohibits certain activities within close proximity to polling places.
On the gentleman's motion that this House adhere to its position on Senate Bill 199 and that a committee of conference be appointed, is there objection? The chair hears none. This House has adhered and a committee of conference will be appointed. The chair appoints to the committee of conference Representative Gravely from the 67th, Representative Fleming from the 121st, and Chairman Reinders from the 152nd District. Chair recognizes Chairman Alan Powell for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask the House to agree to the Senate substitute to 949.
Chairman Powell has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute on House Bill 949. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 949 to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 9 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to illegal use of financial transaction cards.
Chair recognizes Chairman Powell to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, when this bill passed out of the House, this was the P card language. We had put on line 58 designated officials or employees. When he got over, they found that the or employees needed to be stricken, because if it was not stricken, that meant that every time they authorized a new employee, they'd have to redo their whole county ordinance. This way, by taking it out, then just clarifies all of that language. I would ask for your consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 949, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 166, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 949. Chair recognizes Chairman Rogers for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I need to agree to House Bill 943, agree to the Senate substitute to 943.
Chairman Rogers has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 943. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 943 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 13, Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated, relating to illegal and void contracts generally, so as to provide for additional limitations on indemnification and duty to defend.
Chair recognizes Chairman Rogers to explain his motion.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this is a bill that I've been tracking for some time, and there was an amendment that I agreed to, and Chairman Wendell Willard. The House went back to the original language. There were companies, the Department of Transportation wanted the original language, so that's what we went to. It dealt with broad form indemnification as far as insurance is concerned, so this will address the issue with engineers, architects, and also surveyors, and that's all it simply does.
You have a question if you care to yield.
I'll be glad to if I need to.
Chair recognizes Representative Dudgeon to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Be happy to.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for not talking to you earlier. I worked with Sully about this last night, but I have real serious concerns that the word engineering is not defined in that chapter, and it will catch myself and other engineers when it's really trying to deal with things like construction and civil engineering. And I went back and forth, and I don't know if this bill is going to pass or not, but after I'm gone, I would hope that someone cleaned up that definition. And so anyway.
Well, if I can answer, gentlemen, I've been hearing about rumblings about you, and I wish you had come to me, but that's your prerogative. We have been working on this for some time, and this mainly addresses the construction industry and not the industry you're in.
It's supposed to, but I think the bill's not worded correctly, and I think the House version was okay. The Senate, I think, went back to the other version. But anyway, that's my fault.
It went back to the original draft,
right.
Is what it's done, and as amended to include land surveyors.
That's right. Okay. That's my fault. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
I think everybody understands, Mr. Speaker. I will yield the will and ask for your consideration on the substitute.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 943, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 137, the nays are 30. And this House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Bill 943. House will be in recess for dinner until 7:15. Let me make an announcement. Listen up. We have dinner downstairs for members in room 216 and staff in room 230. Members in 216, staff in 230. We will be in recess until 7:15.